Miss Pantry. And as you see, I am getting ready to can up a bunch of meat. I had extra meat in the freezer. I've got right here, I've got a corned beef that I par-cooked. I par-cooked all this meat, or completely cooked it. And then now it's ready to can, and I'm gonna can it up in 1 canner load. They all go for the same amount of time. I'm doing pint jars, all smallmouth, and I don't mind using smallmouth jars, because actually you can tuck the meat under the shoulder a little bit better. Those are a little warm. B, because I have them readily available, and because it's par-cooked, they come out of the jar just as easy as if it was a wide mouth. So I reserve my wide mouth jars for things that I absolutely have to have a wide mouth. So I've got my jars all clean, hot, and ready to go. My rings, my lids are over here, my flats, and I've got here, you know, I was a little torn. I usually do just water on my corned beef, and I may still do that for the corned beef, but for the pulled pork, which this was smoked on the big green egg, and it's completely shredded done. But if you've never canned this, oh, let me just tell you, you need to do this. It's so delicious. I had 3 pounds of ground turkey that I needed to use up, and I'm trying to clean out the freezer. I'm making room for some grass-fed beef, but I'm also getting rid of things that have hit that expire date. Basically, it's been in the freezer long enough. Poultry, you've only got about 3 months in the freezer, so why not, at the end of that 3-month period, if you still haven't used it, get it in a jar, you get 3 more years. All right, I've got chicken breast here. There was 4 chicken breasts, 2 bone-on and 2 boneless, skinless, and so I'm gonna can all this up, and we're gonna get it in the All-American canner. I've got my 921 quart, and it will stack, double stack pint jars. So that's why, another reason why I chose pints. I can't go through a quart of meat by myself, so a pint jar is plenty. And I have found for the corned beef to do a Reuben or something like that, or pulled pork to do sandwiches, you're gonna get 3 sandwiches out of a pint jar. So, and healthy, lofty sandwiches. So come on in and let me show you how I'm doing it. I'm so excited. Okay guys, so I've got my jars all hot and ready. Like I said, everything is hot. The meat is not screaming hot, but it's all warm. I'm gonna put hot broth over it, and I chose a vegetarian broth, better than bouillon vegetarian. And so it will give it a little bit different color. Like I said, the corned beef, I may just do hot water like I usually do. So the chicken, and in between, some of the chicken didn't get quite as done as the other part of it, but you only are par cooking. And it's really to get those impurities that float to the top out of the chicken. So let's get the chicken down. And I've got different spoons for each meat so I don't cross-contaminate, but in between jars, I'm gonna have to switch out my debubbler and or my poker, and I'll just wash it in between because I don't have 3 or 4 of them. So this is a great way to clean out the freezer. So you just tuck that right underneath. Make sure you're leaving an inch of headspace, and this is going to be the same for all of the jars. So that looks good. Hopefully you can see that okay. See, we've got an inch of headspace, which is right to the neck of the jar. And now I'm going to go ahead and ladle over some hot broth, and it'll sit in the canner waiting patiently for the rest of the chicken, turkey, corned beef, and pulled pork. And so I go ahead and kind of get down into the center as well as down the sides. And your headspace that you've created may change because of air being released down there, but that looks perfect. And I'm gonna go ahead and wipe the rim of my, I already got vinegar on here. Wipe the rim of my jar. I've already inspected all my jars, so I'm good to go there. Grab a flat and a ring, fingertip tight, and it really doesn't take much. You just get that resistance. There you go. Okay, this jar is going in the canner to wait for the rest of them, and I'll be back. Actually, I'll do some fast forward and you can watch the process fast with a little bit of music because I know a lot of you like that. Is loaded, and I'm not running this big canner with it partially full. So I have 2 jars of beans, and that's the one nice thing. Now, it's not recommended that you do beans this way, but I do it all the time. I put sorted a half a cup per pint of pinto beans, and then I just add a half a teaspoon of salt and some water. And then the rest of it is all meat. So I believe I've got 8 on the top and 8 on the bottom. Maybe it's 9 on top and 8 on the bottom. And so I believe we've got 3 pints of chicken, 5 pints of pulled pork, 3 pints, maybe 4, of corned beef. I guess 3. 2 of which I used what was left of the vegetable, better than bouillon vegetable broth, because I didn't want to waste it. And then the other one is just plain water. And then the rest of it is all ground turkey. So when this comes up to speed, now my canner has been warm. I keep it about 180 while I'm filling, putting the jars in so they can stay warm. Now I've turned it up, and once it starts venting steam, I'm gonna turn it down to where I actually can from. And that on my burner, on this is not the ultra hot burner. I feel like that's too hot for this canner. This, I keep it down just above low, and it rocks at 11 pounds on the dial gauge, 10 pounds of pressure with the weight, and that's because of my altitude. I'm at 242 feet above sea level, and I went from 4,500 feet above sea level to this, so I got to drop down to the 10-pound weight. And anyway, look in your area. All you have to do is Google your address and ask for the elevation, and then you can look it up in a reputable source. And I highly recommend grab yourself a ball canning book. They're available anywhere they sell canning jars. And yeah, let's save some money and make sure we don't waste any of this. All right. And once it then steam for 10 minutes, I'm going to put the weight on, and when the weight starts dancing, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer for 75 minutes for pint jars, and if it was quarts, it'd be 90 minutes. Even a pint and a half jar would be 90 minutes. So, all right, guys, I got to clean up a mess. I'll be back. Okay guys, so this came off of pressure, and what I do when it comes off of pressure is I let it come down slow and natural. Leave it on the same burner space. I don't move it to a cold burner. I don't want any siphoning out of my jars, so I really take this part very seriously, as well as getting it up to pressure in the canner. There's no rush. And if something was to happen in my canner, let's say something didn't go right and I had to start over, I still would start over very slowly. I mean, there's different ways to do this, but thankfully I've never had to start over. Okay, so this lid has been kind of propped up on itself here to let steam out for about 15 minutes. And I've already heard jars popping. I have 2 Tattler lids because I put 2 jars of beans in there. So the Tattler lids, you want to go ahead and tighten them when you bring them out of the canner. And I've got them on the top here. I'm going to go ahead and put my canning lid down on a towel. Even though my quartz is heat resistant, I don't want to mess it up. So everything is always expanded in the jar. So when people bring out, you know, us canners bring out our jars out of the canner, it's always expanded. It's always going to look like we have perfect headspace. But once it actually comes way down and cools down, that headspace and everything shrinks down. And that's the true tale of the story. So I'm going to take out the 2 Tattler jars, which are beans. So I got 2 pints of pinto beans, pinto beans, and I don't tighten the jar if I hear any hissing or anything like that. And honestly, I've had jars that I didn't tighten. This took very little tightening. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put it over here on the towel and we'll pull out the next jar. I've found, even though these are supposed to be tightened back down, there's plenty of liquid in the jar, as you can see. So we're not going to end up with sludgy beans if you overpack your jars with beans. Okay, so that one can go over there. You are going to get, yeah. Okay, so here we have the corned beef. Now I used the extra broth from the veggie broth, so it's not as clear as my normal corned beef, which I have been asked, please can some more corned beef, even though I still have some. There's another one with the veggie broth, and then this is how pretty it looks with just water. And be mindful when you're pulling these out of the canner not to, and they're still boiling in there. This headspace is not yet correct. Tomorrow morning, it will be correct. Well, later tonight. And I will make sure all my jars seal before I go to bed. I know a lot of people say they don't disturb them for 12 hours, but I make sure my lids are sealed. If they are not, I put them in the refrigerator because I don't want spoilage. This is the ground turkey. Isn't it pretty? Ground turkey. And I'm telling you, that's what sold me on par cooking or completely cooking your meats. Ground beef and adding, as you guys know, I did a video on dry canning ground beef and it comes out okay, but this to me is far superior. To cook your meat, add your broth, the texture is better, and canning raw ground beef is disgusting. Smells like dog food. I do not believe you can guarantee that you've got penetration, the heat penetration you need, so I don't do it. It's too risky. I did it once for meatloaf early on, taking another YouTuber's advice, and when I opened the jar and it smelled like Alpo and all the dogs came in, I went, I don't think I want to eat that. And so I don't do that. But that's just me. If you do that, hey, more power to you. Everybody's taste buds are different. So I'm going to take this rack out, get the rest of them out, and I'll come back with an end shot.